oh man, the SEC saga continues. We got not one, not two, not three, but 4 topics to talk about in today's video. However, it will be highlighted with no other than Lane Kiffin himself, and he has just straight up exposed Nick Saban in the NIL. He's finally spoke up and he has released the dark truth about Nick Saban and what's going on there. I find it pretty funny because only a couple of days ago, the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey banned Lane Kiffin from talking about it on the Dan Patrick Show. But if you know Lane Kiffin, you know he was going to speak up and find his way into this mess. That's just the way Kiffin is, and I'm going to tell you up front, I love it. Let me ask you a question. Is it really SEC drama without Lane Kiffin? Come on, man. Like I said, we also have a bunch of other topics to talk about. It's going to be an entertaining video. Get you a snack, get you some popcorn. We're also on the road to 200K, so if you want to help us out, help us achieve our dreams, hit that subscribe button, it means a lot. And now without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get into the real juicy Lane Kiffin drama, let's talk about this first. As we all know, with the name, image, and likeness, it's okay for college athletes to receive money. Despite that, it's still not okay in a lot of states for high school players to receive money. One of those said states in particular is not arguably, I think it is the biggest state when it comes to high school football. It's Texas. Out there in Texas, they eat, breathe, and sleep high school football. It's almost like religion. It's a lifestyle. I'll try to find a picture and throw it up on the screen right now, but they literally have high school stadiums that are bigger than colleges. It's absolutely insane. All of these high schools, they're raking in tons and probably millions of revenue each and every year, but high school players still can't get paid. That was also a big reason and the main reason that Quinn Ewers, the kid from Texas who went to Ohio State early, went there. The reason he skipped out on his senior year was so he could take all these NIL deals at Ohio State and make millions of dollars. Here's my take on high school players getting paid, and it's very similar to how I felt about college players getting paid. If somebody's willing to pay your money for your art, craft, or your skill set, whatever you do in your life, you should be able to receive that. If you're the #1 running back in high school football and some company wants to give you a $10 million sponsorship and in the following season you go out there and wet the bed and you're terrible, that's not your fault, that's the company's fault. They invested money in you and they didn't get a good return on their investment. That's okay, that's how business works. My thinking with that is relatively the same. If someone's willing to pay you, anybody in this world, I don't care what your age is, you should be able to receive that money. I'll take it a step even farther. If somebody wants to give a middle schooler a $2 million sponsorship, why not? I don't understand who would be against it. It's not like you're the company investing in these kids. Whoa, hold on. There's a major downside to paying high school athletes, just like how I felt with paying college athletes. There's some pros and there's some cons, but that's how everything works in life. The concern, con, whatever you want to call it, to paying high school athletes is ego. If you think a college athlete's gonna have an ego after making $1 million from NIL, imagine a high schooler. I'm sure a bunch of you watching this, you're either A in high school or you went to high school. We all had an ego, or at least I hope you did. If you didn't have an ego somewhat, you were probably getting wedgie Wednesdays and swirlies. Everybody has this misconception that an ego, it's a terrible thing, but I strongly disagree. You gotta have somewhat of an ego, because if you don't, you'll get walked over in this life, especially in sports. I'm not saying you're supposed to walk around your high school like you're the best thing ever, but you gotta hold your head up and not let anybody walk over you or take advantage of you. People try to make you feel bad in this life for feeling good about yourself, and you shouldn't. You gotta be assertive, you gotta know your worth, but you also gotta be humble about it, and the best way to describe it is a humble beast. Every day when you wake up, you gotta look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm the man, nobody can stop me, but you don't want to walk around saying that out loud. You gotta be confident. You don't want to be cocky, but you gotta be confident, and there's a fine line. Like I said, I don't think it's necessarily bad to have an ego, and I'll even take it a step farther. I almost think it's better to be slightly cocky than a pushover. I don't like a cocky athlete. I'd much rather see a humble one, but you can't deny the fact a lot of these people that are cocky, they can back it up. I've always felt this way. If you can talk trash and back it up, I don't even think it's being cocky, that's being confident. Cocky is quote unquote when you're overestimating your abilities. So if you tell me before the game, I'm going to throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, and you go in there and do it, you're not cocky because you did it. With all that being said, when do us males have that biggest ego? In high school. Maybe yeah, for some people it will carry over and linger into college, but by the time you're 20, 21, 22, no male really has that ego they once had. And if you do have a big ego and you're out of high school, you need to check yourself. That's exactly where I'm going with this. You thought high school athletes were cocky before receiving money? Imagine how cocky and how big of an ego they'll have after receiving millions of dollars on sponsorships. That could be a very dangerous avenue we travel down, but Like I said, it all goes back to this. If someone's willing to pay you, I'm all for it. It's really tricky though, and I'm gonna be honest, it's a great debate. You can pretty much validate giving a 19 or 20-year-old kid in college $1 million, but when you start talking about 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, that's a different ballgame. Here's the last thing I'm going to say about it, and I really want you to think about this. Let's say a high school football player in Texas, they give him a $1 million sponsorship with Beats. You don't think at least one or two of his teammates are going to be jealous? How many kids are on a high school football team? I think it's unlimited, but it's probably what? Maybe 70 or 80? You mean to tell me out of 70 or 80 kids, and that's just a rough estimate, at least one or two of them's not going to be jealous? In college, I think a lot of guys are not really jealous, but in high school, I think it's slightly more. I think it could cause a lot of tension and a lot of enviness. I'm very curious. Let me know your thoughts on that down below. Moving on to our second topic, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this whatsoever because I want to get into this Lane Kiffin stuff. The early 2022 Heisman odds have officially come out. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I saw one name on here and I lost my mind. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. Going down the list here, you got CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, then in fourth, the fourth best odds, DJ Uyunglele. Are you kidding me? Who's making these odds? I don't have a problem with Tyler Van Dyke being on there. I don't even know too much about him. Jackson Dart, he could be good. You got Bijan Robinson. In my opinion, he should be in the top 2 or 3 or 4. And then you got Dylan Gabriel. I'm not a Dylan Gabriel believer, but any quarterback for Oklahoma, they're going to have a good shot. The biggest question mark I have here is how in the heck is DJ at 4? Not just 4, but how is he even in the mix of things? Did they watch him play last year? He wasn't even average. I want to make this clear. He was below average. I'm not even pulling up the numbers. It's not even worth it. I just can't believe he's up there and whoever made this list. My honest opinion, and this might be a hot or controversial take, but I believe it, I don't even think he's the best quarterback on the roster. I think the backup quarterback, Cade Klubnik, he's going to take his job. I wanted to share that and bring it up with you guys. Let me know your thoughts on that as well down below. But let's get on to the main encore, the main dish, Lane Kiffin. Gentlemen and ladies, the train Lane has officially arrived at the station. And guess what? He's bringing the smoke. Mr. Kane Lippen did an interview very recently, and what he had to say, it was eye-opening. I was pretty shocked at some of the stuff he said, but I gotta give the man credit. He speaks his mind, and I admire that. He doesn't hold back for anybody, not even the greatest of all time, so let's just check it out. Kiffin was asked about the current state of the name, image, and likeness going on, and here's what he had to say. I've said it from the beginning, players should get paid. They do the work. Why that should be limited to a scholarship check, I disagree with, and they shouldn't be paid all equal. That's not what happens in the real world. Why does their best player get paid the same as the worst player? That's not real life. There's just not a system. It was okay. Open it up. No system behind it. I'm sure some people saw these things coming and a lot of people didn't. That's straight up facts. I remember talking about this over 2 years ago saying, if this name, image, and likeness does happen to come out and be true, it's just going to cause chaos because there's no system behind it. And when I say there's no system, I mean there's no rules and regulations. There's no limit. In the NFL, why everything works smoothly because you can only pay players a certain amount of money. Whereas in college right now, if, let's say, Twix, Reese wants to give Bryce Young a deal, they could pay him $500 million and there'd be no repercussions because there's no limits. Until we put in some rules, it's going to continue to be chaos. It's the same thing with the United States. It's supposed to be this free country, but there's still rules and laws. I hate to break it to you, but we gotta have rules. If we don't put a speed limit on the roads, then everybody be going 200 miles per hour. If we didn't have laws, then people would be taking advantage of the government and just, it continues to go on. So although America is technically the land of free, and although college football you can pay players, you gotta have rules. But check this out. He was then asked about what's the deciding factor in how a recruit picks what school to go to, and here's what he said. You take a 17-year-old, a lot of them don't come from money, and a family doesn't come from money. If any person tells you that their NIL is not the number one thing, take 100 of them and ask about the number one thing that's going to make the decision. It's not the size of the stadium, not the head coach, not the campus or the conference. The number one thing will be the money. He also added, and how would you blame them? A professional player already has money and they usually follow the money in free agency. So when you don't have it and they're 3 or 4 years away from getting money in the NFL, you take what is guaranteed. How can you blame them when a lot of them never make it to the NFL? How do you not take it? Woo, man, Lane Kiffin giving y'all some insight knowledge on the recruitment process. I find that kind of ironic. I can't remember the video because we make so much and we've been grinding a lot. But I think it was 2 weeks ago I said relatively the same thing. I think it was one of the videos where I was calling out Alabama fans how they say, oh, we don't pay players. They want to come here because we have great tradition. We get players to the NFL, and we've won so many championships and blah, 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 blah. And in that video, I stated, I hate to break it to all the Alabama fans, but none of these recruits coming out of high school give a crap about the tradition or anything that's happened in the past. A lot of these guys aren't even old enough to care about the tradition of Alabama. They're going there because it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a stepping stone to their next level in their life to get to the NFL and make a ton of money. And Lane Kiffin just proved my point perfectly. The number one thing on their minds is the money. How much are you going to pay me? Am I saying tradition, the championships, your head coach, it doesn't matter? No, because it does matter a lot and maybe more to others. But overall, for the vast majority, like Lane Kiffin said, money is number one. And I can't blame him either. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm going to say it again. Say it with me now. Money runs the world. The sooner you figure that out, the sooner you realize that, it will make everything else in this world make sense. Money runs the world. I don't even have to explain on it. If you don't get it, then you're lost. Just sit back and think about it for a second. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but a lot of these college football players, they don't come from money. Yeah, you may have one or two here and there, but I'd say 90% of them, they grow up below middle class. So a lot of them aren't even looking out for themselves. They're looking out for their mama. They're looking out for their grandma. They're looking out for their family. Anyways, moving on, Lane Kiffin added to it and said, it's totally changed recruiting. I joke all the time about it. Facilities and all that. Go ahead and build facilities in these great weight rooms and training rooms, but you ain't gonna have any good players in them if you don't have NIL money. I don't care who the coach is or how hard you recruit, that's not gonna win over money. Once again, just goes back to my point, money runs the world. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's where Kane Liffin starts to pretty much expose, I don't even want to say expose, it's just reveal the truth about the NIL. They asked him if there's a solution to this, and here's what he said. The thing that seems simple is there's a cap. How are we not a professional sport? What's the difference? Players are making money, and they can opt into free agency. We're a professional sport. But in this next part, what he says about Bryce Young and Alabama and what they got going on, it is very interesting, and just listen to it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Lane Kiffin said, why did Bryce Young not go into the portal? If you're advising Bryce Young, why do you not go into the portal and walk into Nick Saban's office and say, hey, I want to be here, but I've got to protect myself, so I'm going into the portal. And I want to come back as long as it's matched with what I get out there, referring to the offers. The kid will make 10 times what he would have made. How is that not going to happen all the time? It should, it will. Okay. Lane Kiffin's pretty smart. I didn't even think about that. If you don't know what he's saying, I'm going to try to dumb it down even more. So we all know Bryce Young, there's no reason he would leave Alabama. He just won a Heisman Trophy and everything's going smooth. So but Kiffin's saying that if he entered the transfer portal, all these teams would be drawing over him like Texas, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, just all these programs with a ton of money, and they'd offer him the most amount of money. And then let's say, for example, Texas says, okay, Bryce, we'll give you $15 million to come here. He'll go back to Nick Saban in Alabama and say, hey, if you don't match this, I'm going to leave. That's actually pretty smart. If you're looking at it from a financial standpoint, that would be the best route. It's really no different than the NFL, and a great comparison was Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs. He didn't want to leave the Chiefs. There was no reason to, but they wasn't going to pay him the same money that the Dolphins were, so he said, okay, if you don't match their offer, I'm out of here. And long story short, that's why he left, for money. Bryce Young, he came from a great family. He's not the type of guy to sell out for a couple $1 million because he knows he's going to make probably $40 million with his NFL contract. But you have to understand, not every quarterback's Bryce Young, and there could be a quarterback recruit out there that takes advantage of this if we don't fix it. Here's the last quote I'm going to show from Lane Kiffin. He said, you have kids going to schools now, and some haven't even taken a visit. They sign with him because of NILs, and I think he's thrown some shade at Texas A&M. You got to think that it is here to stay. To say that it's not sustainable, why not? 10 years ago, no one would have said schools were going to pay coaches $10 million a year, and well, they do now. A lot of people don't like Lane Kiffin, I actually do. But you can't deny everything he said and everything I've shown you, it's facts. It's not even his opinion, it's straight up facts, and if you deny that, I think you're stupid. Kiffin said a lot about Alabama and Saban, but here was the most interesting quote. Here's what he said. People always ask me when Nick Saban will retire. Before I used to say, not for a long time, he's driven and works like he's 30. But now I say, it'll be never. Why would he? You get the best players, have free agency to pluck from the best players. He'll be there forever. He might double his championships. One thing that came to my mind when he said that is I remember around 2016, Nick Saban stated that he wanted to coach for at least 14 more years. That was in 2016, so it's only 2022. I'd say he's got a good 8 to 10 years left in him. That's going off of what Saban said himself. I think that's at minimum. He could go for at least 15 or 20. To be as old as he is, he looks great and he's in great shape. He's always doing work with the defensive backs. He's out there in the sun. He's got a pretty good life right now. I'm in the same boat as Kiffin on this one. I don't see him retiring anytime soon, and he doesn't even look like he's ready to. He loves what he does, and I think it's similar to Tom Brady. If he did retire, he couldn't stand it and he'd have to come back. He's gotten so used to a lifestyle, it would be miserable for him not to coach. That's good news for Alabama fans, but it's bad news for everybody else in college football. Our last and final topic of this video, don't want to spend too much time on it, but it is being reported that Georgia and Kirby Smart, they're about to settle on a huge contract extension. Not too sure how long it's going to be. They're still working out the details, but I think it's very much deserved. He's been recruiting great at Georgia. They've been competing for championships, but here's my biggest question. I wonder if they didn't win that championship game last year and they would have fumbled it away, I'm not too sure if they'd be giving him this extension. I think there'd be a lot of bad blood between the people up front and Kirby Smart, but hey, no need to talk about that too much because they won it, so it doesn't matter. I just can't help but think if he didn't win that and they blew that championship somehow, I don't think everybody'd be on great terms there. But it is a huge W for Kirby Smart. I always love to see him succeed. He seems like a great dude, and I think he's going to be at Georgia for many, and I mean many years to come. I mean, you're talking about at minimum, I think 20, 25 years. He's got a little bit of that Nick Saban in him. He loves to win and he hates to lose. I'm wishing him the best of luck. Let me know your thoughts on everything down below. But with all that being said, I got babies.